today's episode of Transpiration. So, what are the learning objectives of today's lesson? We are going to learn today what is transpiration. We will learn what is evaporation. We will learn what is the difference between the transpiration and evaporation. We will also learn that how the water is made available for transpiration. We will learn the types of transpiration. We will learn the mechanism of stomatal transpiration. So, this all we are going to learn today. Now, after that, in the next episode, we are going to learn weighing method experiment in this transpiration. We are going to learn Gannong's potometer. This is also very important experiment. With these experiments are very important for your exams. We are going to learn about the factors affecting the rate of transpiration, the significance of transpiration, and guttation and bleeding. So in today's episode we are going to learn this all, and in the coming 4 episodes we are going to learn about these things. So if you want to learn more about transpiration, if you want to know more what we are going to do in the next episodes, in the next lessons, in the next classes, so please do subscribe to my channel for knowing more on my updates which I am posting. Stay tuned and stay updated with the videos which I am posting regularly on the curriculum based on ICSE 9th biology. So let us start with today's episode of Transpiration. Now here let us discuss what is transpiration. Now let us see the picture and just discuss what is transpiration. Now first we can see the roots are taking up the water from the soil. Now this water is it is drawn up by the stems to the leaves. Okay, the veins are carrying the water into the leaves, and water from the leaf, it evaporates to the atmosphere. So this evaporating of water from the leaves is called transpiration. So what is happening here? Now the loss of water vapor from the aerial parts of the plant is called transpiration. So what is it? It is the loss of water from the aerial parts of the plant. And what is happening in this process? Roots are absorbing water and minerals from the soil, and this water flows up the root through the xylem vessels and stems to the leaves. So the xylem vessels which are present in the stems are carrying this water to the leaves. We know that phloem vessels, they are not participating in this transport of water. So we have proven that in experiments. So this water flows up the roots through the xylem vessels in the stems to the leaves. And a small amount of water, it is being used during photosynthesis and other activities of the plant. Now rest of the water, what is happening with that? Rest of the water is evaporating from the spongy mesophyll cells of the leaves, and it gradually diffuses out of the pores in the leaves, that is called stomata. So stomata, we all know that these are the openings present in the leaves. So they are mostly present in the lower surface of the leaves, and we have already told or discussed about the structure of the stomatal cells. Now if you have not gone through the episode of turgidity and flaccidity, please go through it. There is a part where under turgor pressure I have taught full details of this stomata cells. So detailed structure of stomatal cells has been discussed in that turgor pressure portion. So if you have not yet gone through that, I will give the link in the above or in the description box. Go through that turgidity and flaccidity part to understand this cell structure of the stomata. Now what is evaporation? So what is evaporation? Now here we can see in this picture, we can see that water from the surface of water, the rising of water vapor is called evaporation. So this is a warm surface, the water vapor is rising from that surface, and this process is called evaporation. You can see this is like a water cycle. You can see from the plants when the water is evaporating, that is called transpiration, and from the surface of the water or water surface when it is evaporating, it is called evaporation. So what is it? Evaporation is a type of vaporization that occurs on the surface of the liquid as it changes into a gas phase. So changing of liquid to a gas or forming into a vapor is called evaporation. So we should know the differences between evaporation and transpiration. So transpiration is also vaporization of water, but it is from the aerial parts of the plant, not from the surface of water. But evaporation is a type of vaporization that is occurring from the surface of the liquid and changing it into a gaseous phase. Now let us see the difference between evaporation and transpiration. Now here comes the difference between transpiration and evaporation. Now, if we are taking the phenomena that how we are discussing evaporation and transpiration, let us see that evaporation, what is it? It is the loss of water from the surface of the water bodies in the form of vapor. And what is transpiration? It is the loss of water in the form of vapor from the aerial parts of the plant. So loss of water in the form of vapor from the aerial parts of the plant is called transpiration, whereas loss of water from the surface of water bodies is called the evaporation. Okay, so this is also vaporization. That one is also vaporization, but one is happening from the surface of water and transpiration is happening from the aerial parts of the plant. Now evaporation, it's a physical process and it's always controlled by the environmental conditions like the relative humidity and the air current. Now here when it comes to transpiration, it is a physical as well as physiological process. So it is physical, we all know that it is a physical process also, but some physiological changes are also there in this process. Now besides that, environmental conditions are also helping that now it is influenced by what? It is influenced by the osmotic pressure, by the we can say that by the position and number of stomata present on the leaves, by the air pressure, by the humidity of the environment, by the temperature. So all these physical factors are affecting this transpiration. So transpiration, what are the factors on which this transpiration depends? We are here to come with those factors also in the coming slides. If we are moving forward, we will be discussing about the main factors on which this transpiration is depending. So it's both a physiological and a physical process. Now on what this rate depends? Now the rate of evaporation depends. It's a very fast process and the velocity of the wind is mainly on which the rate of evaporation depends. Now transpiration rate is slightly slower than evaporation, and it also depends on the velocity of wind. Now how is the light influencing both evaporation and transpiration? Now evaporation does not have a direct influence of light, but opening and closing of the stomata depends on the light. So it's a light dependent process. Transpiration, it reduces or it rather stops at night because the stomata gets closed. Okay, because the rigidity of the stomata reduces and becomes flaccid, and so as the stomatal openings close at night, so no transpiration occurs. But if in a hot and humid place, from the surface of water body, evaporation continues. So there is no direct effect of this light or influence of light on this rate of evaporation. So understood, dear children. So first we are discussing about the phenomena, what is evaporation, what is transpiration. We are discussing about the nature of the process, how it is happening, physical, physiological. Then we are discussing on the rate. So it is a fast or a slow process on which it is depending. Then we will be discussing the rate of dependent on the influence of light. So these are the main points on which we are discussing about transpiration and evaporation. So let us move on further. Now, how is the water made available for transpiration? So, as there is a constant loss of water from the leaves, there is a constant requirement of water. So, how is water made available for transpiration? So, this is a quite important question. So, how is the water made available? So, there is a continuous loss of water, we all know, from the leaves by transpiration. So, water flows from the xylem vessels to the surface of the mesophyll cells of the leaves by the two routes. How? By two routes, how we can say? First, we can say that is entering by the process of imbibition. Okay, so next the water is flowing through osmosis. So how these are happening? Now first we can say that most of the water flows directly through the porous cellulose walls of the mesophyll cells. So it is flowing directly through the porous walls of the mesophyll cells, and a very small amount of water flows by osmosis from one cell to the another. Okay, so how the water is flowing up to the xylem? So as a result of transpiration, what is happening? The water pressure in the xylem vessels here, the water pressure in the xylem vessels, what is it happening? It becomes lower. So than the roots. Okay, whatever water is sucked by the roots, the pressure in the xylem vessels, it reduces because the constant water is being evaporated by transpiration. So this pressure difference of water helps to suck up more water from the roots to the leaves. And in a similar manner, as we suck cold drink with a straw, this water is being sucked to the xylem vessels. Okay, so how the water from the soil to the xylem is happening? Same thing, the water is sucked up by the roots. How come? And the leaves is replaced by water which is flowing through the soil. So the water is flowing through the soil, and this soil water is being absorbed by the roots. Now this water, it is absorbed from the soil through the freely permeable cellulose walls of the root hair. into the root cortex. So the root hair is having a easily permeable root hair coating which is made up of cellulose. So it is passing through that and into the root cortex. This water flows to the xylem vessels, through the xylem vessels to the leaves to the mesophyll cells, and thus the transpiration process continues. So it's a continuous process where we have seen the process of imbibition, we are seeing the process of osmosis also. So if I've not gone through the process of imbibition and osmosis in the previous lesson, it will be difficult to understand what is the process of imbibition and what is the process of osmosis. So please go through that part where I have discussed in a full lesson or a topic, imbibition as well as osmosis. So go through that, and then only you'll understand how by this process water is made available for the transpiration. Now we are here with the types of transpiration. Now here there are three types of transpiration. So let us first discuss with the stomatal transpiration that is happening from the leaves through the stomata. So next one is the cuticular transpiration, that is from the waxy cuticle layer of the leaves and the stem. And the third one is the lenticular transpiration, which is happening from the lenticels present on the old stem. So the first one is very important, and which is about 90% of transpiration is stomatal transpiration, and cuticular transpiration as well as lenticular transpiration are very less. So these are negligible, like 0 to 3% or 1%, these cuticular, or 2 to 5% this cuticular and lenticular transpiration takes place. So this is the important one, stomatal transpiration, which is from the leaves through the stomata. And this cuticular and lenticular transpiration, that is cuticular is from the waxy cuticle layer of the leaves, and lenticular transpiration is from the lenticels present on the surface of old stems. Now let us go to details of the stomatal transpiration. Now here we are going to discuss about the full mechanism of stomatal transpiration in details. Now let us see that how much percentage of total transpiration is the stomatal transpiration. So it is almost nearly 90% of the transpiration happening in plants is stomatal transpiration. So what are stomata? Stomata are small openings which are present on both the surfaces, but on the lower part of the surface of the leaves they are mostly present in abundance on the rather than the upper surface. So in the lower surface of the plant leaves, stomatal concentration is more. So number of stomata vary from 1000 to 10,000 per cubic centimeter. Okay, so what is stomatal transpiration? So we should discuss the process of stomatal transpiration. So how it is happening? So let us first discuss about how it is happening. So water is absorbed by the roots, we have already told, from the soil. So this water is gradually moving up through the xylem vessels via the stems, and it is at last it is reaching the spongy mesophyll cells of the leaves. So it is reaching the spongy mesophyll cells of the leaves. Now these spongy cells in the leaves have large amount of intercellular spaces. So as they are having large amount of intercellular spaces, there is a huge amount of we can say that these cells give out some water as a thin film. So in between these intercellular spaces they are giving water as a thin film. The water from this thin film, it evaporates in the form of water vapor, and the water vapor, what is it doing? It is then saturating the air in the intercellular spaces. The water, these intercellular spaces are filled with some water, thin film of water. So this water evaporates gradually in the form of water vapor, and this water vapor then accumulates and reaches the substomatal space. So this water vapor is reaching the substomatal space through various connecting intercellular spaces. Okay, through intercellular spaces it is reaching this, and the water vapor gradually escapes through the stomata by the process of diffusion. So then as it is accumulating in the intercellular spaces, this water vapor, it is accumulating in the substomatal space, and thus there are various connecting intercellular spaces where the diffusion is happening, and by the process of diffusion the water vapor escapes from the stomata by the process of diffusion. Now the molecules of water move from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. So inside the mesophyll cells in the substomatal region or the substomatal place, the higher concentration of water helps them to move to the diffuse to the atmosphere where there is a low concentration of water vapor, and the water lost by the cells is replaced by more water from the nearest xylem vessels. Again, the xylem vessels are sucking up more water from the roots. So thus the cycle continues. So water lost by the cells is replaced by more water from the nearest xylem vessel, and most of the water moves along the cells by the process of imbibition, and only a small, very small amount is moving by the process of osmosis. So the main process happens with the imbibition process. Okay. Now, how do stomata regulate transpiration? So stomata, this opening and closing of stomata, I've already told you in the previous slide also. I have already taught in the turgidity and flaccidity lesson. Please go through that part where in plant physiology I have taught the turgor pressure. There I have already taught the closing and the opening of the stomata. So again, in a little bit brief, I'll discuss. So what is happening here? These stomatas, what are these? These are minute openings found in the epidermis of the leaf, stem, and in some cases even flowers. So each stoma which contains a pore surrounding by two guard cells. So these are two guard cells which are guarding the stoma. Okay, the opening or the pore. Now, stomata, they are present in the lower epidermis of the leaf. They are present in the upper epidermis also, but in large amount they are present in the lower epidermis of the leaves. Now, in the daytime, what is happening? The cell sap concentration becomes very high. Why it is high? Because due to the presence of sugar, which is formed by the process of photosynthesis and is stored in the cells in the form of starch. So this increases the cell sap concentration, and due to that, the accumulation of sugar in the guard cells as a result of photosynthesis. So what is it doing? This results in the movement of water. So for that higher concentration of the cell sap, it causes the movement of water into the guard cells from the neighboring cells. So from the neighboring cells, the water is moving to these guard cells. As the cell sap concentration is high, there is sugar accumulation in the cells. So the water from the outside pours into the guard cells or moves inside the guard cells, and they become turgid. And the guard cells, these guard cells they are bulging out, they are becoming hard, they are becoming turgid, they are bulging out, and they are pulling apart the inner walls of the stomata. So see, they are pulling apart the inner walls of the stomata, and there is the opening is we can see that the opening is being seen, or the stoma is open in the morning. So what happens when this pressure falls? These guard cells, they become flaccid. So when the pressure falls, when the water moves from inside of the guard cells to the outside, so this happens at night when the cell sap concentration is low, because the photosynthesis has already stopped. There is no accumulation of starch or sugar in the cells. So as this turgidity reduces, or the guard cells become flaccid, as soon as the guard cells are becoming flaccid, this opening, this is closing. So stomata is closing at night. So as soon as the stomata closes, there is no transpiration happening in plants. So at night, no transpiration is happening. Okay, so let us see in the next one. So this is the continuation of how do stomata regulate in this transpiration only. So let us see. Now, if the availability of the water is reduced, the same thing I've told in the previous slide also, if the availability of water is reduced, the guard cells, they lose their turgidity and they become flaccid. So they are losing their turgidity, they are becoming flaccid. So it is in the turgid state when the pores are open, and at night it becomes flaccid and the pores are closing by the exosmosis. All these processes have been discussed in the previous part of plant physiology. Please go through it, dear children, so that wherever I am putting the link above in the description box, also go through it, so that you are very much clear with the lessons of turgidity, flaccidity, this osmosis, diffusion. All the lessons are very important in this transpiration also. So they are losing their turgidity and by exosmosis of water from the guard cell. So these leads to the closing of the stomata and the transpiration is completely stopping. Is it clear? So let us move on to the next part. Now next comes the next part of transpiration, that is the cuticular transpiration. We have told that we are going to discuss about 3 types of transpiration. First was the stomatal transpiration, that is the main transpiration which is happening in plants. Now this one is the cuticular transpiration. So see, let us see what is this. Is the waxy cuticle which is present on the surface of the leaves. Now thin waxy layer that prevents the moisture loss is the cuticular transpiration, through which Now, cuticle is a waxy layer which is secreted by the epidermis of the leaves and the young stems of the plant. So, this is 3 to 10% of the total transpiration process is only cuticular transpiration. So, it occurs day and night. It doesn't depend on the stomatal opening or closing. It is happening through the cuticle. And the thickness of the cuticle is the main point on which this transpiration depends. So if the cuticle is more thicker, the transpiration is very less. If it is not so thick, there is a chance of more transpiration through the cuticle. Now, greater the thickness of the cuticle, lower is the cuticular transpiration, and vice versa. So lower the thickness, greater will be the cuticular transpiration. So let us move on to the next one, that is the lenticular transpiration. Now, what happens in lenticular transpiration? Now, first let us discuss what are lenticels. So, it occurs mainly in the woody, old woody branches of the trees where lenticels are found. So, these are the lenticels. So, lenticels are special openings on the, we can say, on the older stem. So, these are present mostly in the older stem, and in place of stomata, we can say this lenticular transpiration, it accounts for only 0.1% of total transpiration. So in stomatal transpiration is 90 or more than 90%. Cuticular is we can say that it is 3 to 10%, that it is 0.1%, so very less. And the lenticular transpiration, what is happening? It continues through day and night. So these are the lenticels present on the woody stem of the old plant. So they do not close. These are not like stomata that they are opening in the morning and closing at night. So these openings are always these are open. So lenticels, they always remain open. So in lenticular transpiration, water from the cell surface facing the lenticels, it evaporates directly or diffuses directly to the environment. So there is no question of stopping the process of transpiration, lenticular transpiration at night and more in the daylight. No, it's not like that. Whatever transpiration happens through these lenticels, this is a continuous process and which continues throughout the day and night. Now, this is all about transpiration. In the previous slide, we have spoken about cuticular transpiration, and cuticular transpiration, it is like the desert plants which are having thick cuticle. They cut down with the help of that thick cuticle only. There is less water evaporation, or loss of water is restricted by the presence of thick cuticle. Okay, so on desert plants only we are having very thick cuticle which prevents the loss of transpiration. So this is all about the types of transpiration. So coming forward in the next video, I will discuss with you about the measuring rate of transpiration and different experiments which will prove that transpiration is happening in plants. So for these upcoming updates, please subscribe to my channel, and for the coming topics which I am going to discuss in the coming classes, stay tuned and stay updated with my lessons, and please do write in my comment box what are your doubts and what are your queries. Thank you.